Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to do a hand-painted pumpkins design. So I'm going to start with a very simple base on my cup. I painted my cup with this really light brown spray paint, doesn't matter what color you use. And then I put a very thin coat of epoxy on the cup to now adhere my glitter. The glitter I'm using is from the September Peachy palette. The name of this color is Acadia, and it is so gorgeous. I love it. So I'm just going to cover the entire tumbler with this glitter color, and I'm going to let my glitter layer dry. And then after it's dry, I'm going to seal it with a coat of my glitter glue and water mixture. I'm going to let that dry for about 2 hours, and then I'll add 2 coats of epoxy to my tumbler. Each of those coats was about 20 milliliters, and I'm using the Flynn Sisters Fast Cure epoxy, so I waited about 4 hours in between each coat. After my epoxy is on my tumbler and my cup is smooth, I'm ready to go in and start painting the base of my pumpkins. So I've got some pop of color paints here. You can also use acrylic paint if you prefer. Whatever you have is totally fine. I'm going to take a few different kind of like nudie, beigey, rosy colors, and I'm just going to put a bunch of them into my palette. I'll have a list of all the colors I'm using down below in the description box for you. But you can see I've just got a bunch of colors, and I'm just going to kind of mix them together as we go and create some new tones and shades and things. So I've got my tumbler and I've got this little flat brush, and you can see I'm just taking a little bit of one color, a little bit of another, really saturating my brush with my paint. And then I'm going to go in and paint my pumpkin. So to paint your pumpkins, it's really easy. You're just going to make basically a bunch of parentheses type shapes and then fill them in so that you have that pumpkin shape. And you can make your pumpkins short and fat. You can make them perfectly circle. You can make them really tall and skinny. Doesn't matter. Just have fun with this. No pumpkin is perfect, so just keep that in mind when you are painting them. So I'm going to start up at the top rim of my cup, and we're going to do both the top and bottom rims here. So I'm just going to, again, create my parentheses shapes with my paint, and we're going to do 2 coats. So don't worry if you have perfect coverage or opacity on your first pass. We'll go through and add some dimension and stuff later. So I'm just going to take this same color that I have on my brush, and I'm going to go to the bottom of the tumbler and repeat the exact same process. So your technique will be the same no matter what kind of shape of pumpkin you're going to do. You just want to make sure that you keep everything in your pumpkin kind of the same, if that makes sense. Like you don't want one side to be super tall, unless you do, because some pumpkins look like that. So never mind. Do whatever makes you happy, and your pumpkins will be totally cute. So I'm going to go through my entire tumbler, all around the top rim, all around the bottom rim. I'm going to use some different tones of paint, kind of make the pumpkins look a little bit different. Like I don't want all of my pumpkins to be exactly the same color. So I'm just going to go through, layer them so that it looks like we have a cute little pumpkin patch on the top and a cute little pumpkin patch on the bottom. And so once I've got my first round or first layer of paint down, I'm going to go through again and I'm going to build up the coverage of my pumpkins. And on the second coat too, I'm going to maybe take some different colors, layer them on top to add some different dimension, and just really fill in the pumpkins. You can do as many coats as you want. I ended up only doing 2 on my pumpkins, I think maybe 3. But just make sure you wait in between each coat, like let your paint dry a little bit before you go in with your next coat. You don't want everything to get all muddled or have it be too thick. So I would just wait a few minutes in between each coat. The chalk paints dry really fast, so that's a plus. So I'm just going to go through again, layer over my first draft of my pumpkins, make sure that my outlines are pretty clear. So when I go in and I add my outlines with my paint pen later, I know what pumpkin is what and like what goes with what. So just trying to make sure that the colors are not too similar right up next to each other. But really just have fun, be creative. It doesn't really matter in the end. They're gonna look cute no matter what you do. So don't put too much pressure on yourself during this step. They do not need to be perfect. So here's what the cup looks like so far. And here's where I did go in and do a really quick third coat just on a couple of my pumpkins to build them up a little bit. And once I'm done with this third layer on my pumpkins, I'm going to move into creating my little stems. Now, I have way too much paint in my tray. Don't pay attention to that. I was working on something else as well. So for this step, you need the tiniest amount of paint. You really don't need a lot. Again, I'm using Pop of Color paints here. You can use any sort of green paint that you have. You can also use a green paint pen if that's what you have and want to use. Totally fine. And basically all we're going to do is just create a little flick of paint at the top of our pumpkins to be our stem. So I'm not doing anything special here. I'm really just creating like a tiny little dash with my brush and making these look more like pumpkins. Now, one thing I wish I wouldn't have done that I did on the top was add the stems. I wish I would have just kept it looking like the top of the pumpkin was off the cup so I didn't have to work with that later, but you can do whatever you want. If I ever make one of these again, I'm not going to do the stems on the top. So after my paint was on and dry, I did let it sit and dry overnight. I added another coat of epoxy to seal the paint in. This coat was about 20 milliliters. And again, I'm using the Flynn Sisters Fast Cure Epoxy. So after that coat, I'm ready to go in with my paint pen and start outlining my pumpkins. I did not sand my tumbler before doing this because if you mess up, it's a lot easier to remove a paint pen or paint of any kind from your tumbler on a smooth surface. If you sand it, the paint will get into those little sanding marks and it'll be a whole lot harder to take off. So I did not sand my tumbler down. I'm just going straight in with my white paint pen. And you can see here, I'm doing a very rough outline of what my pumpkins look like. And then I'm going to go in and start building the grooves of the pumpkin. Now I did this probably 4 or 5 times. I would do it, not like how it looked, and then I would take some acetone or rubbing alcohol, wipe it all off, and start over again. So if you try it and you don't like how it looks, just take it off and try again. No big deal. It's totally fine. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see my pumpkins are very kind of whimsical, and that's kind of the way I like it. So I'm not trying to be too precise or perfect. These are not going to look like real pumpkins. That's not my goal. I just want them to be kind of fun and whimsical. I can't think of another word. So I did that on the top, and then I went in and I actually switched to my Posca paint pen for the bottom, and I was really happy I did because the coverage is so much better. It's just so much smoother than the one I was using before. But I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to create my little pumpkin grooves. And once I'm done with this on the bottom, I'm actually going to move back to the top and go over everything again with the Posca pen, just kind of thicken everything up, make everything look a little bit more smooth. And then I'm going to let this sit and dry for, I think I let it sit for like maybe 6 hours, maybe overnight even. You just want to make sure that your paint is totally dry before you add any epoxy over it. So again, once my paint pen was dry, I added another coat of epoxy on top to seal all of that in. And now I'm going to finish off the bottom of my tumbler really quickly. I took some electrical tape and I taped off the bottom edges of my pumpkins. I know I did not do a great job doing this. I wish I would have done it a little better. I might go over it again and fix it. I don't know. There's a few little gaps where you can see between the pumpkins and the bottom paint of the cup, and I don't like that. So anyway, I'm taking my electrical tape and going around the bottom rim of the cup, and ideally what you'll do is cover up all of the bottoms of your tumbler so that you don't have any weird gaps moving from the pumpkins to the bottom. So I'm going to take some more of one of those paints that we used, Creme Brûlée, in our pumpkins, and I'm just going to paint the entire bottom of our cup with this paint. You can finish off your bottoms however you'd like. I wasn't exactly sure when I was designing this idea how I wanted to finish off the bottom, so I figured I would just paint it, make it a solid bottom, and just move on. But if you want to bring your pumpkins all the way down and kind of make it, you know, like a seamless transition with your pumpkins, that might be kind of cute. Maybe I'll do that next time I make this. I don't know. Have fun with your bottoms, and it's fine. Nobody ever looks at the bottom of cups. So once I have my paint on, I'm going to hit that with my heat gun to dry it a little bit quickly. And now I'm going to add my decal. So for this initially, I did my brown offset, and then I went in with the gold texture metallic vinyl from Terra Craft, but it didn't really show up very well. So I did change the vinyl, but the process is the same. This decal, by the way, will be available on my website. It says meet me at the pumpkin patch. So I put my brown offset down first, and then I went in with my top layer decal. And of course, I'm applying everything line by line, piece by piece. It's so much easier. And once I had that on, I sealed the vinyl with a coat of the gloss polyacrylic. You can just get that at Walmart. And then I added my final 2 coats of epoxy. So after that, we are all finished. You can see I just changed to like a beige vinyl instead of the textured gold, and I think it shows up so much better. But here's the final result. Look how pretty that glitter is. I love it. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you are not already, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, love you. Bye.